Welcome to Bible study. We are preparing this Bible study for Sunday, January 5th in 2025. First Bible study of the new year, and we are beginning with a new subject for our Bible study. We had been dealing with the book of 1 Samuel and some of the Deuteronomic history. But now we want to begin maybe with a bit of older literature than that, and that is the words of wisdom from the Old Testament, but also we're going to spend a little time in words of wisdom from the New, because it's found in both. I'm standing today in front of this parament that adorns the pulpit here at St. Michael's, and it is, what do you know? 3 wise men. They've been part of this Christmas story from the very beginning, since Matthew's telling of it. Although the word he used there was magi in Greek. Those are a particular class of scholars and astronomers from the region of what is today Kurdistan. It's kind of in the news lately. But we have always associated them, or long associated them, with this term, the wise men. And that actually is interesting because it says something about us. They're wise. But what do we mean by that word? I'm not going to spend too much time in the text of the Bible today. I just really want to introduce the idea of wisdom as literature, and that God would speak wisdom to us and what we expect that to be. What does it look like when God talks to us and imparts to us wisdom? I'm going to attach links to a couple of videos for you. Hope and pray you're able to watch some of those. They can tell some of this better than I can. But around 1,000 years before Jesus was born, a movement swept from Egypt to the Middle East, and it was called wisdom. It would last for about 400 years or so, up until the time of the Babylonian exile. And people in that time were on a quest of sort. They were looking for what is a wise life. Or maybe we would say today, what is a good life? What does it mean to be good? What does it mean to be wise? The greatest exemplar of that wisdom in the ancient world, from the biblical perspective, was, of course, King Solomon, the son of King David. He occupies a fair amount of that Deuteronomic history we were just reading about. But what we have in the Bible are books that are said to be written by Solomon himself. It seems that around the time of David and Solomon, people were asking, what does it mean to be wise? But that what makes the biblical record here is that this is really, or makes us different in the biblical sense, is that they seem to be asking, what is wisdom in light of Torah? What does it mean to be wise in light of what God has done for us and who we are? And so you can really think of wisdom literature, especially this early wisdom literature that we are going to look at from Psalms and Proverbs, Ecclesiastes and Job. We're going to see those as really the first commentary on the Torah, the first explanation of what it means to say, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God, the Lord is one, and he is the Lord who has brought you out of Egypt. Now, therefore, you shall have no other gods." For the ancient Jewish person, that meant a particular way of life. I think today, a lot of times when we think wisdom, we're really thinking sanctification. But I believe that word, in a sense, leads us somewhat astray. Holiness is certainly part of wisdom, and one of the things that we're looking for in that wise and good life. But there is much, much more to it. And the ancient biblical movement called wisdom, of which Solomon was an exemplar, was really looking at much more, really looking at life holistically, and looking at the whole of life. A lot of wisdom that we're going to read will sound a lot like what you might find on a YouTube video or a TikTok, a life hack. How to fold your clothes better or something like that. It's going to sound a little like that. Much of the wisdom that we're going to look at is not unique to Christianity. In fact, there's a rather long section inside the book of Proverbs that seems to be either a direct quotation of an Egyptian document that we have, or the Egyptian document is something of a quotation of the proverbial document that we have. But clearly, one is looking at the other and could read the other and say yes to it. It's not just a Christian or a biblical thing we're looking at, and yet some parts of it are. Some parts of the biblical wisdom literature are unique to the biblical witness. What does it mean to be wise? I think as we prepare for our reading or for our study this Sunday, I would have you look at several readings. First of them would be the first Psalm. Psalm number 1 is a wisdom psalm. It is a reflection on the way of the wise, or the way of the righteous man, and the way of a wicked man. And in the end, it says that the way of the righteous will stand, but the way of the wicked will perish. I want you to read that psalm and ask, what do you believe that the way of the righteous man is? What does that meditation upon the Word of God day and night, what does that do to him that makes his way wise? The other place that I might send you to, just to begin with, is where we're going to more or less end this discussion of wisdom, but kind of to get an idea of where it's heading. And that is to look at Paul's letter to the Romans and to consider chapter 12. In chapter 12, he begins by saying, let our minds be renewed. Let us be renewed in our minds, and then that's going to bear fruit in all kinds of different ways. Some of them are not uniquely Christian. They are, however, all healthy and good. What I might suggest you do is read through Romans chapter 20 and simply ask, what in there are parts that Paul is talking about, of life that Paul is talking about, that I would really like some of that, or I need more of that, or I wish that were the case. When he speaks of putting other people first, when he speaks of being humble, when he speaks of a community that is based on serving other people, read through that. Find 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you think, wow, that's wise. That's what wisdom looks like to me. Because wisdom isn't only those books of Solomon. It's in fact spread through the whole of the biblical text. But let me just leave you with a few little words here. And these are the opening words of the book of Proverbs. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, the king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in the wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth, to let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance, to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. If the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, of wisdom, what do you think its end is? What is the end of wisdom? Let's talk about that on Sunday. Let's ask, what is wise? What does a wise life look like? When somebody comes to me and says they're imparting wisdom, and it's wisdom from God, what would you expect that to be? So, read Psalm number 1, read Romans chapter 20, Let's talk wisdom this Sunday. God bless you.